I don't like intros, so let's get straight to it. 5 mistakes I've made in my 20s. I have made way more than 5 mistakes, but these are the 5 that have caused me the most pain and suffering. And so my thought here was, let me just share it with you guys so that you can maybe avoid these mistakes. Or if you've made some of them yourself, maybe you can learn from what I did and apply them and have a happier, healthier, lovely-dovelier life, something like that. Anyways, let's go. Number 1, I made a TikTok about this, but I want to go more in depth because this is the biggest mistake I've made, and it's this: letting my feelings run my life. Do not let your feelings run your life. Now, why did I make this mistake? How did I make this mistake? Well, truthfully, I still do this to this day, but the biggest time I made this mistake was when I went through my first breakup, my only breakup. It was a girl I dated for 4 years. We did long distance. It was a very difficult relationship, and it ended not in the greatest way, but I say all that to say I was in a very shitty place when we broke up. It's crazy how something can happen so long ago, and when you think about it, it feels like you're transported right back to that moment of immense pain and loss and hopelessness. So let's go back there for a second. The first 6 months after my breakup were terrible. I'm sure probably most of you have been through this at this point, but I'm getting somewhere, so stick with me. I thought that because I was a very introspective and self-aware and sensitive person, that the best way to get through my breakup would be to do the things that I've always done when I'm going through something hard. This was the hardest thing I'd been through, but this was what I would do. I would think about it. I would ruminate on my feelings. I would examine myself. I would take, notes on what was happening in my life. I would journal. I was very good at being vulnerable. I had a therapist. I loved talking to people about what I was going through when things were hard for me. And I thought that that was my skill set. I thought that was my strength, was being a very self-aware, emotional guy who always knew how he felt about things and was very in touch with his emotions. I never had the problems that other guys had with not being vulnerable and not being able to open up and being just the kind of person who would bottle shit up. So that's setting the scene. I thought that I could get through this breakup in the same way. Just really focus on my feelings, put them on a pedestal, just absolutely lock in every day as to how I'm feeling and how I can get past this. So I did that. I would wake up, I would let my feelings kind of take me through the day because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. And so if I was feeling shitty one day, I just wouldn't do anything because that was me honoring and respecting my feelings, right? And so I think you can see where this is headed. I did that for months and months and months, and I started to ask myself, why am I not getting better? I thought that if I really, valued my feelings in this and respected myself and really let myself feel this thing out, that's how I would get through this. And I wasn't doing it. I was getting a little better because more time was passing, and it's true, time heals all, but I wasn't getting better. And I started to think, why the fuck am I not getting better? And then for some reason, it just started to kind of click. Also with the help of my therapist, I realized I had spent so much time prioritizing my feelings and what I was going through and making my entire identity about the fact that I was going through a really hard time that I was completely neglecting every other part of my life. The gym, my other habits, my routines, my friendships, going on walks, reading, doing stuff with friends, going out on weekends. I was throwing all that shit to the side because I thought that I just had to focus on how I felt and that's what would make things better. Well, newsflash, it didn't make things better, and that's the advice I want to give you. Don't let your feelings dictate your entire life. I know we all know this, but for some reason it's impossible to do in the moment. We know that the hard times are going to come to an end. The thing is, how quickly those hard times come to an end is oftentimes determined by what you're willing to do outside of suffering and focusing on your pain to help yourself get through it. So I fucking hated when people gave me the advice of go outside, go on walks, do things to stop yourself from spiraling, because I was the kind of person who thought that I needed to let myself spiral and needed to let myself go to those dark places and examine those feelings because that's how I thought I would get over it. So when somebody would say, just go hang out with your friends, if my parents would say that, I'd be like, dude, I love you, but shut the hell up. That's not going to help me right now. I just really need to focus on this. Turns out they were right, and I hate that, but it's honestly one of the truest things about life is that all the cliche things you hear are true. Damn, I almost threw up. I told myself I'm not going to make any cuts because I filmed this already and it took an hour and a half and I did a terrible job. So we're just going end to end. So I told myself that if I just focused on that shit, it would get better. It didn't get better. And so I started to really realize what I had been giving up in my life by making my entire life about my breakup. And you can do this with anything. You can do this with getting fired from a job. I've done that. You can do this with falling out of a friend group. You can do it when you move to a new city and you don't know anybody. You can do it with anything, any type of relationship, any type of situation. If you're going through something difficult, you can let it become your entire life. And you think that you're supposed to do that. And to a certain extent, it's inevitable because, if you go through something really hard, it's going to be what you think about it a lot of the time. Of course it is. It's not that you shouldn't blame yourself for that. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, you have to kind of try to do the impossible in the sense that you have to focus on just doing 1 to 2 other things. That's kind of the conclusion that I arrived at. I would continue going to the gym, and I tried to do 1 other thing to help myself get through it. Maybe it would be talking to a friend. I have a best friend who I would FaceTime every day. Maybe it would be reading. Maybe it would be going to my parents for dinner. I went to my parents a lot more because thankfully I still live by them. What I want to encourage you to do if you're going through something like this or worried that you could be in the future is to just try to be 1% better every day. That's a very cliche piece of advice, 1% better every day, but it felt so overwhelming to me when I had that moment of realization where I understood that I was throwing away the rest of my life and becoming the guy who was going through a breakup. And I started trying to do everything at once. I started trying to fix all my habits and my routines. I started trying to be the old Jacob again, and I didn't understand how to do it because I didn't know who I was outside of that relationship. And it was overwhelming, and then I would burn out, and I would be inconsistent, and then I'd be back to spiraling. I think that when you're going through a very tumultuous time that's giving you a lot of feelings, you got to just pick 1 or 2 things. You got to know that you're not going to do them at 100%, but that's okay. And that leads me to the last point on this, which is that if you're able to focus on those 1 or 2 things, whether it's still, investing into your career or your education, like don't start skipping classes, keep doing well at work, or keep showing up in your friend group, or keep journaling, or keep reading, you will be so unbelievably grateful for that decision when you finally get through the hard time, the losing a loved one, the relationship ending, when you finally get past it, when you finally find that new job after you got fired. You will thank yourself to kingdom come for the fact that you were the kind of person who was able to look past this immense amount of pain you were in and invest in yourself, because that's really what it is. And I don't want to get all preachy about this shit. Like, I don't want to be a typical self-help dude. I'm just trying to share what I've been through. But after I started to actually finally feel better about my breakup, and it was largely because I started to do other things, I got better exponentially as opposed to gradually. When you're going through a breakup at first, it's like, oh, you feel terrible, and then you start to get a little better, and then you go backwards, and then a little bit and a little bit. Doing those other things helped me just get to a different level very quickly when it all started to finally click. And then I was even more grateful for the fact that I had taken the time to try and work on myself. So I think that's all I want to say about that. Obviously, way easier said than done, but it's one of those things where it feels impossible in the moment, but if you can just try to extend yourself and your timeline for your life beyond the immediate pain that you're in, it'll do you a lot of good. And so I would encourage anybody who's going through something like that, or just a time where they feel like their feelings are dictating all of their behaviors and their entire identity, to just try and pick 1 to 2 other things to focus on. I hope that's not bad advice. It's so hard to do in the moment, and I still struggle with this. Like I said, all these things I'm going to be telling you today are things that I still do, and that's why I'm so passionate about them, and that's why I want to share them, and I want to get your feedback. So if you have anything to say about what I just said, please let me know. But if you don't, let's move on to number 2. Number 2, I'm trying to remember. I don't even want to reference my notes. That was responsible for a lot of the fuckery that happened in the last recording of this. This one is more of a practical mistake that I made, and I think that a lot of my videos, at least on TikTok, because that's probably where you're from, have been about like emotions and thoughts and anxiety and stuff. But this is just a really real world one. Is I really regret that I didn't try harder to make friends the first few years of my 20s. I regret it so badly for a lot of reasons. I'm about to talk about all of them. That's the point of a podcast. So let's just get straight to them. Actually, let's not. Let me give you a little bit of context. I want to make these things about stories from my life and not me just telling you what to do. So I am from Reno, Nevada. I still live here. Next year I'm moving, but I'm from here. I was born and raised, and I went to school here. I went to a school called University of Nevada, Reno, UNR. So I got to my freshman year of college. I lived in the dorms with 2 of my best friends. I had a girlfriend, the one that was aforementioned in the last point. I knew a lot of kids on campus because I had just grown up with them. They were all from the same city as me. And so I decided in my head that I didn't really, I'm going to lock the door. Somebody just like screamed. I'm in an empty RC Willie's parking lot and somehow somebody's screaming. But anyways, I thought I didn't have to try hard to make friends because I knew people. And I want to, oh my God, I'm going to love making this point because this is really what I want to talk about. I think we're all very well aware of the fact that our world has kind of shifted into a place where everybody thinks that solitude and independence and alone time are the priority. It's gotten very binary. Like, everybody thinks you're either supposed to be shy Sally, super introverted, very closed off, loving your alone time, spending your weekends indoors, just maybe having a couple close friends, but not really putting yourself out there. Or you're on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. You're super outgoing. You're the frat president. You're the life of the party. You're the guy who always wants to go out. Like, I feel like we've had it made up in our minds as a younger generation that you're supposed to just be one of those two things. Well, I had it made up in my mind that I was the former. I'm shy. I don't love approaching people. I get nervous. I get anxious about it. I said, I'm making myself sound like a bitch, but I'm just not the person to start a conversation is what I'm saying. And so I thought, I've got my friends. I've got this place I'm familiar with, so I'm not going to try too hard to make friends. Well, fast forward 5 years, I regret that so fucking hard for a couple reasons. The first one is I didn't realize how difficult it would be to make friends once you left college. You never realize it in the moment, and I want to make this applicable to people who might not even be in college. I don't know how old you are, but I think we can all understand this. When you're in college, you're around so many people who are in the same phase of life as you, right? They're studying the same thing, they're young, they want to make friends, they're in this atmosphere where everybody is looking for connections and investing in their future. Like, you're around a lot of like-minded people, and for that reason, I think it's very easy to start interacting with people or making friendships and connections. Well, I didn't realize that at the time, but when I graduated and started working and was spending my days around 50 and 60-year-olds who I had nothing in fucking common with other than the fact that we both had a heartbeat, I realized, like, oh my God, I should have tried way harder to talk to people. I thought that I could still just make friends as easily as I had all my life growing up when I was a grown-up, but now I can't. I have to try really hard to put myself in scenarios where I can meet new people, and even then it's difficult because of just who I am by nature. And so my advice is, don't be so closed off. I know that is so simple, and like, maybe it's oversimplifying this, but I want to tell you that you can be somebody who loves their alone time and loves having their own space and likes to sleep in their own bed at night and still go out and make friends and try. Like, I've started to realize this recently and do it a little bit more. There's a time and place for both, and there are people who like both. You don't just have friends who are either one or the other. You can be a dynamic person who has different times where they want to be with people and different times where they want to be by themselves. It doesn't have to be so black and white. I think that's just the way the world has gotten, is things are very one or the other. But I fucked up in thinking that I could kind of just get by with the few friends I had, and I'm still friends with all of them, but I've seen people who I went to college with and who I am friends with who tried really hard to make friends, and I'll give you a couple examples. Last night, my roommate, his name is Brady, went to a game night at his friend's house who he met in college, who I also knew but chose not to really talk to because I just wanted to keep to myself. And now they're really good friends and they do a lot of stuff together, and he's friends with that guy's friends now, and I could be friends with them. And I'm not saying like, oh, I lost out, I missed out, but I'm saying like, I think I would have just had a better life if I had more friends. I think about all my best stories, all my best memories, all my happiest moments in life. They involve other people. I love making videos. That's why I'm doing this. All of my favorite videos of all time have either my best friend, my girlfriend, because I'm dating somebody right now, or my family or some other people in it. And yet for some reason, I think that we just live in a world, and I'm susceptible to it, where all I think about is like spending time on my own and doing my own things and like just very selfishly moving through the world. But I think that making friends, it provides this level of fulfillment that you just can't get anywhere else. Like, what I'm really trying to say is you can spend the rest of your life watching Netflix, staying in alone, doing things by yourself. So while you have the opportunity to, and when you're young, you should try to make friends with other people. I have gone out on much more of a limb lately. I am going to start hanging out. Last weekend, actually, my roommate who plays pickleball with that guy I just mentioned that he met in college, invited me to play with some of his other friends, and I went and played with him, and I made a friend, and then I met 2 other older dudes, and now we're going to play pickleball together. Like, you just have no fucking clue where your life could take you by just opening yourself up a little bit to being with other people. You don't have to be out 24/7. You do not, by any means. You could wow, I just fucking short-wired. You could basically treat it like an exposure therapy type of thing where you're like, I'm going to spend like just 2 hours a week outside and I'm going to strike up a conversation with somebody. You could literally take that approach. This morning I went running on a trail behind my apartment, and after 2 miles I stopped because my knee was absolutely falling off the bone. My kneecap, I have like my IT bands are messed up, whatever, boring. And I walked past 12 to 15 people, and I just told myself, I'm going to say good morning to every single one of these people. Now, this will be a separate video because this pisses me off, but only 2 of them said hi back to me. But I just thought to myself, who's to say what could come of this? I go to the sauna at my gym. I talk to older dudes now, and I talked to a doctor the other day who said, he just gave me some really good life advice. Like, life can start to feel so monotonous and boring when you get older, and I think one of the best ways to keep it fresh is just by talking to people. It's really that simple. Just please, I'm begging you. I really wish that I had tried harder. I'm not going to act like it's over. I'm only 25, I get it. But I would just implore you. I would really, really beg you to try and be a little more open-minded, because you can feel that in other people when they want to talk to you. And if you can radiate that energy just a little bit more, I think your life could be so much better. I mean, whose life ever got worse by having more friends? I can't imagine many people's, right? So that's point number 2. I'm going to take a quick sip of water, but we're not cutting because I said I won't. So number 3, I'm spacing on number 3. Let me take a look at it real quick. I know what number 3 is. This is potentially my biggest regret of all. I have a lot of feelings around this, but I just want to be real about it. It kind of connects back to number 1 in that it has to do with my last relationship, which was clearly the biggest thing to ever happen to me, which means I'm blessed. But can I shut the hell up and just make the point? The third mistake, and maybe most costly mistake that I've made in my 20s, is staying in a relationship that I knew wasn't good for me. Now, we've probably all been there. I'm guessing you've been there before, so you probably know what I'm saying. So to a certain extent, I don't feel like I have too much to say about this, except I have everything in the world to say about it. I have a friend right now who's going through a similar situation. He's been dating a girl for a couple years. They've been off and on, and I think he's really struggling to get over it, and it reminds me of my situation in many ways. And one of the things I've said to him that has been the lesson I learned out of this is, your life is way too short to be spent in a relationship that you know is hurting you. It just is. Because when you're young, you feel like you have the rest of your life to figure things out, and you can make up any excuse to validate why you're doing the things you're doing. You might be staying in a relationship because it's convenient and you guys are both in college, so maybe you'll just break up when it's over. Or maybe you think it's going to be better despite the fact that you get in a fight every day because you know you guys love each other. Or maybe you've just been together for so long that you feel like it doesn't even make sense to break up anymore. Or maybe you have an apartment together. Or maybe you guys both love one another's families and you couldn't imagine life without them. Like, this is the most basic one of all before I move on to the next point. You don't want to be alone because you're scared to be alone. It's uncomfortable. You would rather you would rather take a certain level of unhappiness than have to risk even greater unhappiness to try and eventually find more happiness, if that makes sense. That was a lot, but basically I'm saying people stay in relationships for a lot of reasons, and we can really make up anything and justify it to ourselves. And I think a lot of that falls under the guise of, well, I'm young, so I have time to figure it out, right? You are right. You do have a lot of time, except you don't. Your 20s only last 10 years. I'm not trying to create some sort of scarcity, because obviously your life will hopefully get better and better into your 30s, 40s, and beyond. But I think we can all acknowledge the fact that our 20s are a very special, rare, and meaningful, and intense, and dramatic, and suspenseful, and incredible time of our lives. And I think that they are far too short to be spent in a situation that is hurting you and costing you that very limited time you have here. Because let's be real, you might not even make it past your 20s. I don't want to be that guy, but anything can happen. And so the point I want to make here is, we have intuition. You know when something isn't right for you. It might manifest itself physically. Maybe you get panic attacks or stressed out about certain relationships. It could be a friendship. I'm not just talking romantically. But It could just be mental. You feel this load on your chest that you just cannot get rid of ever, and you feel like you're constantly just like a little bit off. That's how I used to feel. Or you might just know that something is not right for you, and you give yourself one of those excuses to stay in that situation, and you know it's not right, but you do it anyways, and every day you become unhappier, and you respect yourself less and less, and you feel less and less confident because you continue to choose to stay in that situation that you know isn't good for you. I've been there. I've done that. I want to be very clear. I get so guilty talking about this because I'm not trying to like trash talk my last relationship. It taught me so many things, almost everything I feel like I know about the world. And I made so many mistakes of my own, but I just really want to make the point that when you're in a situation that you know is fucking you up, you have to get out of it. And I think that's only a lesson that you can really learn by being in that situation and making that mistake. But when I look back on it now, all I can think about is how much time I gave up in a situation that I knew was really hurtful for the both of us. And I don't even say that in the sense of like, oh, I could have left and like found a different relationship. I just say that in terms of all of the life I missed out on. All the times I said no to going on trips with friends because I thought my partner would be mad at me. Or maybe if it's you, like maybe you said no to a job because your partner wanted to spend more time with you and thought you might be gone too often because of the travel. Or maybe you fell out of one of your friend groups because your partner didn't like one of the friends in your friend group. Or maybe you said no to a pickleball league because your partner wanted to spend time on that day together instead of having you be out of the house. Like maybe you did those same things to them, but regardless, you pass up so many other opportunities in life that could make you happy because you're telling yourself that it's worth it to be in this relationship, even when you really know it's not worth it. Like you're trading away these things that could fulfill you for more unhappiness potentially because it seems like it's never going to work out in the end. Maybe I'm just being insanely cynical right now, but I think I've made my point clear. Please, if you've done it once before, and it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship, do not give your precious time you have here on earth to something that you know is hurting you. It's just too short. I can't say this enough, and I've said it to my friend for the past few months. I think it's one of those things that you can't understand until you're on the other side of it. But I would really encourage you to think about this in other relationships in your life. Maybe it's your relationship to a job or a boss or a friend, or maybe it is your partner right now. Or maybe it's a family member. Like, I know things aren't so black and white. I know it's very complicated, and it's almost impossible to give advice to somebody who is in the thralls of a really difficult place, to go back to the first thing that I talked about, my first mistake. But I think one of the benefits that I have, or that we have about getting older, is that we've experienced more life and we can see patterns more easily because we've been through things. And so making a mistake once is a great thing because that's the only way to learn, but don't make it twice. Don't give away these precious years you have to people and things that you know are not good for you. It leaves you with so much regret. I have very few regrets, and that is one of them, and I've done it in more things than just my relationship, but that's kind of the point I wanted to make there. So hopefully that made sense. That brings us to point number 4, and another sip of water for myself. And if you're enjoying this so far, I would love to know a couple things. I would love to, first of all, know your thoughts on anything I've said so far. Really, all I want to do with these videos is just provide value and share what I've been through and my experiences so that maybe it can make your life a little better. And I also want to talk about things. I want to learn from you guys. You guys have been through a lot. I've had a lot of great conversations on TikTok and just in DMs about things that the people who have seen my videos have gone through, and I love talking about this stuff. And lastly, I want to know where you came from. Was it from TikTok? Because I'm trying to figure out how to like promote this because I obviously want people to listen to it. But anyways, let me know all that if you want to, or let me know none of it and keep listening to point number 4. This is the 4th mistake I've made in my 20s. Telling myself I can only focus on one thing. Now, the irony of that is that I don't think this is something I really told myself. I think this is something the world has told me, and that the world tells everybody when they're young. Tell me if you've heard this before. Just focus on one thing. Pick a niche. Master one skill. You don't want to be a jack of all trades and master of none. I forgot the phrase for a second. You know what I'm talking about. People tell you to just lock in on one thing, one career, one profession, one hobby, one activity, one relationship, one everything. I disagree so hard. Now, I will start by saying there is so much to be gained from really applying yourself to one thing. I believe that to my core. I'm experiencing that right now with just trying to show up and make videos every day. You see it when you go to the gym, blah, blah, blah. But let me get a little more nuanced here because I don't think life is that black and white, and I don't think that we should make it that black and white for kids kids. I still think of myself as a kid. I'm really not. But for young adults, limiting yourself to one focus cuts you off from so many other opportunities in your life and so many potential experiences that you would never even know about because you chose to focus on that one thing. So I'm going to give you a couple examples so I don't get too theoretical and abstract here. Let's start with this. My freshman year of college, I think this is very relatable. You have to pick a major, right? You have to pick something. So I started in computer science, but 1 week before classes started, because I was a fucking idiot, I went to the dentist for a regular cleaning. The dentist told me all about how much he loved being a dentist and how cool it was studying dentistry and doing bio in undergrad and how I should do it because it's a great lifestyle and you make a lot of money, you can own your own practice, blah, blah, blah. He offered me some Kool-Aid and I fucking drank it. And you know what I did? I went to my academic advisor and I said, I'm switching to bio. Can we do that? Switched out of computer science, went to bio, told myself, I got to lock in. This dentist guy, he said he'd be my mentor. I got to focus the hell up. I'm focusing on this. I'm making this my whole life for the next 7 years, however much schooling it takes. This is me. Well, all of 3 weeks into my first chemistry class, I realized I absolutely hate this shit. I want nothing to do with the periodic table. I want nothing to do with cellular respiration. I don't know what I want to do. I think that's really the point I'm making. When you're young, you have no clue what the hell you're doing. And yet people tell you pick a major and you got to stick with that for the next 4 years. And so I switched my major. 6 weeks in, I switched it back to computer science, and I told myself the same thing. This has got to be the thing you do. You got to focus on this. You already switched majors. You can't do this again. You can't afford to fall behind. And that is one of the classic things that I think people think about that keeps them from changing their minds about stuff, which is, I don't want to start over. I don't want to fall behind. I don't want to go back to square one. Well, there's no point in being at square 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, wherever the hell you are, if you absolutely hate your life and hate what you're doing. Because you would be far happier at square 1 being interested in the square you're in than being at square 8 looking at all the other squares thinking, God, I wish I was anywhere else but here. Did that make sense? Maybe not. I hope it did. So I switched to computer science, realized I hated that, and I eventually landed on marketing, which I was far happier with. But I could have easily stuck with biology and told myself, I just got to grind this out because somebody told me this is what I should do. And they said that they would help me. And they said that I need to really focus on this one thing if I want to be successful. I'm making it sound like this dentist guy was trying to ruin my life. He had good intentions, but I think we're so susceptible when we're young to listening to what other people recommend to us that it's so easy to fall into a lifestyle or a hobby or a routine or a profession or an education that isn't really for us, but that we just think is for us and that we have to make for us because it gets too deep, right? You get to year 2 and 3 of studying biology and you're like, damn, can I even switch now? It's actually going to cost me time. Well, in the same way that I just said that your life is too short to be spent in shitty relationships, I'm going to go the opposite way now. When you're young, you can take advantage of the fact that you have time to explore other things because the stakes are lower. This is what I've realized as I've gotten older, because now when I want to think about switching a job or moving to a different city, I have more responsibilities. I have more obligations. I have a girlfriend now that I want to live with soon. I have to save up money to live somewhere else. It's not as cheap as it used to be. I have to pay bills. I have to pay rent. I have a lease. It's not as easy to just change your mind about stuff as it is when you're younger. And I get that everybody's living situations are different, and there might be a couple things that you can't change, but I'm speaking to the things that you can, because it's so easy to feel like your entire life is out of your control when the truth is almost all of it belongs to you. Your choices, your decisions, your actions every day, they are yours. Might they be attributed to a couple things that would be really hard to change or that you just can't change for now? Of course, but let me give you a more changeable example of something that I did recently that really made my life better. After my breakup, I was in my self-growth, self-improvement, that whole mental health era that we all go through after some really terrible shit happens to us. And I started reading self-help books, nonfiction. And so I probably read 10 or 12. And I told myself, you have to read as many of these as you can for as long as you can, because this is how you're going to get better. This is how you're going to get over your breakup. This is how you're going to get into the next phase of your life and be successful and become like a mental fortress that's impenetrable. And somewhere along the way at book 4 or 5, I started to feel like all of the books were the same. I was just kind of over it, and I wanted to read something else. Specifically, I wanted to read a fiction book because growing up, I loved Harry Potter, I loved Chronicles of Narnia, I loved Percy Jackson, I loved everything like that, probably as you did. But I didn't let myself, because I told myself, no, Jacob, you picked self-help books. Now you've got to stick with that. You've got goals. You've got things you want to do with your life. You have a vision for your future. Stick to that. Be consistent. Choose that one path and honor it. Respect it. Commit to it. And so I made myself read 6 or 7 more self-help books that I really just wasn't into, and I had to force myself to read like I was back in school. And then one day I was like, fuck this. I'm reading a fiction book, and I bought a book called Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, which is now my favorite book of all time. It is the greatest book ever. I've bought 3 copies of it. I've given it to 3 different people. I would give it to you. I will literally mail it to you if you want it. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Look it up. It is such a good book. And it's a book that I would have never found, or that I could have found far sooner. And I hate to say that, well, you could have found it sooner. Who's to say I could have? But the point I'm making is I forced myself down a path for so long that I knew I didn't really like, because I just thought I was supposed to, because that's what the world says, because that's the narrative I had sold myself. And I know this is a really trivial example, like picking a different type of book I want to read, but you do this with different things. You could do it with your profession. You can do it with your relationships. You can do it with your hobbies and the things that were supposed to fulfill you, but now just feel like chores. Give yourself the opportunities to try different things, because when you're young, that's when you have the chance to. Something I think we all hate about old people is the fact that they're so rigid and they don't change. You look at your grandpa, or even your parents, or just even certain friends who are your age, and they are very OCD-ish and cling very hard onto their habits and don't like to change their routines and don't like to change their minds about things or listen to different opinions. And you think to yourself, oh my God, you're missing out on so much because you're not what this word is, curious. You're not letting yourself be curious anymore. I think one of the greatest gifts a human can have is curiosity. I started a business with my best friend off of something that we were both curious in. It was just this data thing, and now it's something that we both do together. I read that fiction book because I was curious in it, and now it's my favorite book of all time, and I've given it to people who have said they loved it. I've created memories and connections out of that. But it's only come from moments where I chose to let myself be curious about things and not to adhere to one path or one focus, one concentration, one lifestyle, one way of looking at the world. Again, I want to end this by saying what I said at the start, which is you can gain a hell of a lot from focusing on one thing. I absolutely believe that. It definitely takes consistency to get good at something, and you can fall in love with things once you get good at them. That's what's happened to me with my work. I don't love what I do, but I enjoy it because I'm good at it now. So there's a lot of nuance to this, but I just want to encourage you to be open-minded, because that is kind of the point of being young, in my opinion. You have the chance to be open-minded now, so you should do it. Okay, you know what the sip of water means. We're about to move on to the next one. So number 5. This is the mistake that I've been making most recently, and that's why I wanted to end with this one. Am I kind of tilted here? Fuck. Whatever. I've got my camera balancing on my steering wheel. So also let me know what you feel. What are the vibes here? Do you like this aesthetic of the car? Can you hear my air conditioner? I pray to God you can't, but it's kind of hot in here, so I had to put it on. Anyways, number 5. Let's finish strong. The 5th mistake that I have made in my 20s is keeping everything to myself. Now, this is specifically for the type of listener who's like me. So if you're very sensitive and in tune with your emotions and whatever, actually scrap what I just said. This is why I keep everything to myself. I want to be different in every sense of the word. I want to feel like my hobbies are unique. I want to feel like my feelings are unique. I want to feel like my experiences and my memories and my stories and my relationships are unique. I want everything I experience in my life to feel like it is uniquely mine and belongs only to me. And so for that reason, I have chosen not to share hardly any of my life with anybody lately, despite how close I am with my friends and my girlfriend and my parents, because I don't want to feel relatable to other people, which is actually so baby girl ironic, because I'm sitting here talking about things that I'm hoping you guys can relate to, and I think this is my way of trying to get past what I'm describing. But is anybody else like this? When I'm going through a really difficult time, I weirdly don't want to talk about it with people anymore. I used to be so open-minded, so this is a recent development of the past couple of years, and I still struggle with it. I used to be so open, I used to be so vulnerable. I told you at the start, I would talk to everybody about my situation, my breakup. If you got me drunk at a party, I would just go on and on and on about it, because I loved talking about it and relating with people and connecting on that deep level. But somewhere along the lines, I got very reclusive, I got very closed off about what I was going through, and it's because I felt this very strong desire to be different from people, and I hated when I would tell somebody what I was going through, and they would be like, oh my God, I went through that a couple years ago too, or oh my God, I'm going through that right now. Like, we're on the same page, you know. All of a sudden, my feelings or my experiences would seem less special and meaningful to me because somebody else had them. I want to feel like my time on Earth isn't just being spent as another human living on the planet just to have some decades and then go die off somewhere. Is that what's going to happen? Yeah, but I want to feel different while I'm here. And so in both my happy and sad moments, I recently decided to just stop sharing parts of my life with other people. Even my girlfriend, she'll ask me how my day was. If I had a really good day, I'll just be like, yeah, it was a good day. And I'll have moments throughout that good day where I want to call her and tell her like, oh my God, this just happened. I had a really cool idea, or listen to this story, or like something cool I did, or I made a video and it did well and people were liking it. I'll choose not to say any of that because once I say it, it feels less special. Oh my God, I genuinely can't understand this. Somebody psychoanalyze me in the comments, but I will like not share parts of my life with other people, and I've done it for so long thinking that it would make my life special, but here's the mistake. It's only made me feel more lonely. One of the great things about getting older is you start to see yourself in a different light. You see these different behaviors you have, these different patterns you participate in, and you really start to understand if they're serving you or not. And this is one of those ones that is not serving me. I don't think my life has gotten any better by choosing not to be open with other people. In fact, I think it's only gotten worse, and yet I still do it. This is still a work in progress, and I don't get it. But the reason I wanted to list this as a mistake and talk about it and encourage you not to do this is because when we all, I don't want to say we, I don't know what you think, but when I sit back and really think about the best times of my life or the closest connections I have to people, I think about the fact that they are built on being open with one another and being vulnerable. Then that makes me think, so why the hell are you not being straight up with your friends about how you feel? I'll get annoyed at somebody and I won't tell them, and then it'll bother me and I'll resent them. I'll be really happy about something I did and I won't tell anybody because I think that it's just like I have to keep it to myself for it to be special. Like my happiness has to sit only within me. But truly, my happiest moments in life, as I said earlier, have been shared with other people. And so I don't get it. This point is really a work in progress. But again, the reason I wanted to tell you guys about it is because I think life is just so much better when you share it with other people. And it kind of connects back to that second thing I talked about having this impulse or desire, or just, I think, our society encouraging you to be alone and to be by yourself. And like that whole alpha male thing of like grind in silence and don't tell anybody how you're feeling and don't share your dreams until you've achieved them. Like we encourage independence to kind of an insane degree nowadays. And I think I've fallen victim to it. And, as I've started to open myself up a little bit to other things, I've realized that I just get so much more fulfillment and happiness out of sharing all of my stuff. Not all of it. That's a point I want to be very clear about. You don't have to share everything with everybody by any means, but I don't know. I think at the end of my life, when I'm laying on my deathbed, like, am I going to be happy about the fact that I didn't tell anybody about the good days I had or about the hard times I was going through? Am I going to feel super proud of myself for being able to get through that by myself and not opening up to anybody? I honestly don't think I will. I think I'll wish that I had been more real with people and been more vulnerable, because that's what got us close in the first place, and because that's what life is about, spending it with other people and connecting and bonding over things, good and bad. So I think that's really just one of those things that has kind of started to become more clear for me as my frontal lobe has kicked in. I still have this insane desire to be different and to be unique and feel unique in some ways, but I don't think that's the right way of going about it. And I don't know what the right way to feel different is, but that's not it. It hasn't worked for me. And so if you're somebody who's like that, you prefer to keep everything to yourself, maybe it's not by choice. Maybe you are. I like to try and give advice or just insight that is applicable to people. And I know a lot of people don't feel like they have somebody close to them in their lives to share things with. Thankfully, I have people, but if you don't, something that's helped me when I wasn't willing to share with other people but did want to express myself was making video diary entries for myself. So if I was going through something difficult but I didn't want to tell my friends about it or my girlfriend, I would and still do just open up my laptop and do a webcam video, and I just talk to the camera and I pretend that I'm talking to my future kids. I actually start every video by saying, "Hey kids, it's Dad," because I want to show those videos to my kids someday. It's honestly kind of a convenient excuse to just talk about what I'm going through, but it really helps me. For other people, it's journaling. Maybe you could literally just get in voice memos and talk about things, but expressing yourself is so important. I think that's really at the crux of what I'm describing here, and I wish I had gotten to that point sooner. But I think expressing yourself is so important and such a crucial part of our lives, especially when we're young and we have so much to say about the world. Don't keep it in, and don't let yourself become resentful and quiet and doubtful about yourself. I think it's beautiful to show what's going on with your life to some people. Again, doesn't have to be everybody. But anyways, I think that kind of rounds out what I wanted to talk about. I'll just review really quickly. The first mistake I made that you should try not to do is let your feelings run your life. The second mistake I made was not trying hard enough to make friends or put myself out there. The third mistake I made was staying in a relationship that I knew was hurting me really badly. The fourth mistake I made was telling myself to only focus on one thing and only focusing on one thing when I knew I had other curiosities. And the last one I just talked about, the fifth mistake I've made in my 20s was, why am I blanking? I made it so far. Why am I fucking up now? Keeping everything to myself. Those are just some mistakes I've made. I've made hundreds more, and I'll probably talk about them at some point, but just wanted to give you 5 real quick off the dome. It wasn't off the dome. I literally wrote all of that in a Google Doc so that I could say it to you in an eloquent way. But now that we're at the end, if you made it this far, I would love if you follow or subscribe or whatever this is, because I want to try and put this on Spotify. I'd love to know where you came from, but most importantly, I would love to know what you thought about anything I said in the video. I want to make a podcast for young people, but have it be by a young person. You know, I love watching those videos where an 80-year-old gives you life advice and says, these are things I wish I knew 60 years ago. Like, I get it, but I've always been more interested and honestly fascinated by what people my age are going through, because like I said earlier and many times throughout this episode, I think we all live in this space where everybody likes to keep things to themselves and thinks that independence is important. And so when I see somebody who's actually willing to be open about what they're going through as a person who's close to my age, I'm always so fascinated by it. And so I just kind of want to be that for other people. And like I said, I don't want to ever tell you what to do. By no means do you have to do or not do anything I just said. I just wanted to share my experiences with you and talk about my stories. And if you relate and thought something could help you that I said, that's great. But regardless, if you did make it this far, I really appreciate it. I re-recorded this video because I want it to be more authentic, and I think I did a better job, so I'm actually happy with myself. I'm going to post some clips of this online. I don't really have anything else to say. I'm going to be making more videos. It's hard to focus on TikTok and doing this at the same time, but this is really what I want to be doing, so I'm going to do more of it. And if you want to see more of it, please subscribe or follow or whatever. But yeah, if you made it, I thank you. This is so sick. This is a 42-minute video, so that would be so incredible if any of you made it this far. But yeah, might be a little early to say this, but I love you guys. I appreciate you watching, and I will see you soon with another video about something about being young and confused. So I will see you soon. Bye.